Hi, my name is Tomasz and you're watching Casual DIY channel. In today's video I've got a coal enclosure for my laser, Ortur Laser Master 2 Pro. Check out the video. Right then, so the laser I had it for quite a while now, still works, no issues with it. If you're a beginner in working with lasers or you want to get into it, I fully recommend that tool. It's absolutely fantastic, easy to put together. It's not the cheapest on the market, but the quality, I think it's actually there to validate the price. I'm going to drop a link to my video when I show how to put it together, how it works, so you can check that out if you're not familiar with the Ortur brand. In my opinion, it is quite solid. Now, I managed to get the enclosure for the laser. It's something that I really wanted for this. Just a disclaimer, this enclosure has been sent to me by the store that actually sells this laser. So not by the maker of this, it's by the store, but all my collaborations with any brands are based on, you can send me the product, but it's your risk. Whatever I say, it goes. So there's no scripts. You know, if it's going to be bad, I'm going to tell you that. That's how it works on my channel, and I think it's only fair to you guys that you get my honest opinion about the things I got. So I'm going to take everything out of the box and let's put it together, see how it looks. I have to say everything is really neatly packaged in this box, so it will for sure minimize any issues during transport to your doorstep. Right then, so to note, there is so many parts for this enclosure. There's so many bolts, pieces, nuts and everything. So it looks actually a fairly complicated build to put together. Now the manual that comes, it actually has got a list of parts, and that's about it. You need to go online, scan the code and get a online version of the whole manual of how to put this together. And more or less it is just in photos. There is a bit of text, so hopefully I will be able to use this and put the whole thing together. We'll see how that's gonna go. So one thing to note, you do actually need your laser fully assembled, as this case attaches to the laser and becomes one. For me, it's something exactly as I wanted, because I can put it on a wall, have it in storage, rather than, you know, messing around with two different pieces. So for me, that's good. Okay, first of all, we're going to be installing parts like these with some T-shaped nuts and some bolts. These will be installed at the front of the machine, where you've got the motherboard just over here. Make sure not to secure these bolts too hard yet, as we probably will have to shift it from left to right to make sure it meets correctly the holes that are on the panels that will go on the sides. And repeat the process with the other one. Now we're going to be installing these parts, this T-shaped brackets with a bent end, just like so, with the same fittings as we did before. So the T-nuts and some bolts. Now with the laser upside down, that bent T just over here needs to go downwards, and that one bolt over here needs to go in this axis and the other one in this axis. Okay, so it's not all on the back axis, but it's on both of these. That will allow for a really strong connection. And repeat the process with the other one. And at the back we'll be installing this piece with the hole. That's for the fan itself. So with those bent pieces of the metal, they go inside of the machine just like so, and you've got two holes. You need to marry them up with those brackets that we just installed. And we're just using again the small screws like so. Okay, and the back panel is installed. Let's carry on. Now it's time to install the side panels left and right. As you can see, it's the ones that are sloping towards the front of the laser, and they've got the space, the room here for the handles. One on the left, one on the right. As you remember, we've installed these fittings at the front of the machine here. So one of the holes is going through there. And then at the back panel, you've got another hole that you can fasten with a screw and a nut. And at the back, a bolt and a nut. Repeat the same thing on the other side. However, on this side, you will have the two fittings. So 2 bolts and 2 nuts. Okay, we're still in the back. However, we've got the sides done, we've got the back done, and now it's time for the avoidance slot. So basically what that is, it's a housing for the drag chain as it, comes out just slightly more than the back of the enclosure. So that's basically a housing for that. To install that, just squeeze that through like that. Make sure everything's in, just the box is outside, and just screw it in with these fittings. At this stage we're going to be installing the base, and the base is made out of, well, sheets of metal like these. There's 2 of them that we need to fit to the enclosure. It's actually good that they are very bendy, otherwise it would be very difficult to get them inside. Okay, that wasn't too hard. And to attach the base, we're going to use 8 bolts and 8 nuts. Well, I have to say, so far, that base was the most awkward thing to put on this box. To be fair, mainly just in this part, as there's so little space to get that nut and a bolt together. I've actually used a magnet to help myself, so that could be a pro tip for you guys. Okay, the next step is to attach the front plate as well. This goes just over here, and you will have access to the whole motherboard, to the whole panel at the front here. However, the depth gauge holder thing, I need to take that off because there's no space for that. They actually not included that for this front plate. So I'll take that off and we'll install the front plate. It's just for ease of installation, just unplug all these wires here, and then you can slide this on top, making sure that you've got a hole here for the Campbell, for the tensioner here. So that's quite good that I've included that. You've still got access to that, and just basically slide that from top to bottom just in place. Just need to wiggle it in, and you can see it actually marries up all the fixtures, all the fittings of the front panel, and now you can do up your cables here. Just like so. And now we've got 4 holes, and again we're going to use the smaller bolts, M5 ones, and the nuts. Okay, so again, this is a very fiddly process of getting the nuts in those tight spaces. I'm just going to show you what I did. The key that's provided, obviously, it will fit that nut. So what you do, grab yourself a magnet, just a small one, just like this one. Put it on the key itself, okay? Slide it just above there. And now the key will hold the nut for you, and you can just reach with the key to that really awkward space. And obviously the bolts are outside, so you just use the hex key to drive it in to that nut. Easy peasy, but hey, it works. Okay, we are at the back of the machine, and now we're going to be installing the fan itself. Okay, you've got a slot over here for the power cable, for the lead cable, and as you can see at the back of this fan, you've got some well, that leads the power cable here, okay? And that needs to be facing the back panel here, okay? Otherwise, you'll be blowing the air inside of the whole contraption rather than pulling it out. At the back, we'll be installing this vent that will have the hose attached to it. And to put the vent and the ventilator together, we're going to be using those really long bolts with nuts. Okay, and now it's time to install the top. As you can see, you got a bent edge over here that goes towards the front, and just place it like that. It fits really nicely. First of all, we're just going to secure it with 4 bolts at the back with some nuts. Again, quite a fiddly process, but hey, we managed so far. So I think this will be quite easy peasy compared to the other ones. As you go, just make sure everything, you tighten it up and there's no slack in any of the fixtures. The next thing we need to install are these hinge plates on either of the sides. They just go like that, so that plate goes here. As you can see, it's in this orientation, goes just over here, just like that. And again, you're using the small bolts to secure it. In this case, you don't need any nuts. Just gonna put a couple to hold it in place for me. In total, you need 6 bolts to attach this plate. Next, we're going to be installing the handles. You got the opening for those to be installed. There we go, nice and solid, and the same thing on the other side. Now we're going to be installing these hinges and making sure that the bolt that's over here, the screw that's over here, is just on the main body of the whole enclosure. And in the middle, as you can see here, we've got a hole that we need to plug with this plastic plug. For this, we're using the slightly longer bolts and some nuts as well. The nuts in this case are going from the top Now it's time to install these on both sides, one on here and one on the opposite side. This time we're using the smaller bolts M4s to actually attach those. So that's the front of the enclosure, and now we just need to install the light blocking board. In total, you've got 6 screws to put in and install. Okay, so we are still with the front panel. Reverse it just like so, and we've got 2 of these. That goes on either of the sides with that lip facing inwards. Okay. We've got a fitting just like so. That goes inside as well, just like that. And we'll secure it with the M4 bolts. And you repeat the process on the other side. And now it's time to finish our doors. The bottom panel with that bent profile just over here goes on top, and we just bolt it together. And now we're going to attach the second light blocking board, similar fashion as the first one. Now we're going to install the handle. Goes just like so. We're going to need the longer bolts and some washers. And there you go, that's the front panel sorted. Now it's time to install the doors to the rest of the enclosure. We're going to use the hinges that we already installed, some bolts and some nuts to make sure everything's nice and stable. And now for the finishing touches. Let's add these. The doors will not fall down on itself, so that's a very nice touch there. Really cool. Okay, let's have a look if the fan is working. I'm going to plug that in. And we've got success. It works just fine. I can feel the air is being pulled out, which is good. Okay, as you can see, I've got everything hooked up now. It took me about an hour and a half to put the enclosure together, although that did include filming as well, so probably will take about an hour. It's not too bad. A couple of fiddly things here and there, but all in all, I'm actually very impressed with the quality. Everything fitted perfectly, and the whole box is very sturdy, and it is quite heavy, so you know, probably find a place for it. Although the handles on the sides absolutely fantastic, and it will allow you to move this from place to place with relative ease. However, as I said, it does weigh a bit. The size, the whole panels are actually made from metal, they're not aluminium, so the quality is a lot higher. I really like the ability to see the laser from the top and from the front as well. Absolutely fantastic feature, I have to say. As you can see, I've actually got a vent up above in the in the wall of my garage, so that fits perfectly. At the minute I've attached the hose with some duct tape. However, I will make some permanent attachments there so I can hook it up with a relative ease in the future. Inside of my laser there is already a piece of plywood, 3mm thickness, and we will engrave it. I'm going to turn on the fan as well so we can hear hopefully how loud or quiet it is. And yeah, let's go. Let's turn that bad boy on and you can see how it all works together. I hope you're going to be able to actually hear the fan, as it is very quiet. So that's really a good thing. And now the enclosure obviously is not super airtight. You've got some gaps at the front of the machine. However, when you're actually engraving, there is no smoke coming out. You can't actually smell anything. So the extractor, the fan at the back, is really doing its job. So from that perspective, it's absolutely a fantastic casing there. If you can't stand the fumes, or you do have an issue with extracting the fumes out of, you know, your workplace where your laser is. So from that perspective, the enclosure really works, and there's definitely no issues with it whatsoever. Now, is it all perfect? No, obviously it's not. One of the things that is bothering me to an extent is the fan, in a way. That is, you know, you've got a separate power cable to it at the back of the machine, and you actually need to physically switch it on for the fan to go on. So it's actually quite easy to forget about switching the fan on. So I would imagine, you know, that fan should have been somehow connected to the motherboard and switch itself on automatically and off. So that's one of the downsides in this whole enclosure. Now, as you know, the whole enclosure does come with the base, the 2 sheets of metal that go underneath. My understanding is, you know, if you take it off, the whole enclosure will still, you know, be absolutely sturdy. There won't be any issues with it, and you can operate it without it. I think I'm going to do that as well, as it's just easy to place it over an object and off you go, depending on what you do. depending on how you engrave. If you're engraving smaller pieces like I do really, and you know, some serving boards, chopping boards, things like that, you can easily slide it in there and there's no issues with it at all. However, I'm guessing some of you actually do buy these open frame lasers to be able to place this on top of something of your project. So for sure you can just take the base off and there won't be any issues with that at all. I do actually like the fact that the enclosure attaches to the laser itself, so you don't have to, you know, take your laser apart. You can just add the enclosure on top of it and it becomes one piece. So you're not messing around. You can put it in storage and it will all hold itself together. So that's, you know, from me, it's definitely a good option here. So would I recommend this enclosure? If you've got the Ortur 2, I think it's definitely worth getting. It's really good. However, we are getting to the biggest downside of this enclosure. It's just bloody expensive. I think it's about $300 for the enclosure. Now, if you are looking for a budget option, that's definitely not for you. However, I think the quality in this enclosure does dictate the price tag. You know, if something costs too much for what it is, then I would tell you, in this case, I think the money is more or less on par with the quality of the item you are getting. Now, the laser itself, the Ortur, is not the cheapest laser you can get. However, as a whole package for a beginner like myself, it's absolutely perfect. It's safe. You've got the enclosure, you've got the protection here from the laser, from the fumes. So, you know, it all depends if you want to get into laser seriously and you can see a bit of a future in your business as well to use such a tool. It's definitely not the cheapest option out there. However, it's easy to put together and it really works. And if you are a beginner, I would definitely recommend that to you. If you're more advanced, you still can get really good results with this machine. But for me, it's absolutely perfect, as I am definitely not a master of working with lasers and my knowledge is very limited. But I am able to do the task I needed to do with no problems at all. So it all depends on your wallet, really. If you don't mind spending a little bit more, getting a quality product for beginners, then definitely go for the enclosure and go for the Ortur 2 laser. I think this package is worth the money. It's not for everybody, but there's no issues with it and the quality is there. Okay, so the laser has just finished and the engraving took 24 minutes. And after all that work, there is still no fumes, there is almost no smell to it at all. So the enclosure works really great and the fan works absolutely fine as well. Let's have a look what we've got. You can probably hear the fan going a little bit louder now. I'm going to switch it off now. Let's have a look what we've got here. And there you go. Absolutely perfect. No overburn, no nothing. That's why I really like this laser. It just works absolutely fine. There's no overburn. There's, you know, the quality of the laser itself is absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with the enclosure. As you can see, it's, you know, even the top is very sturdy. No issues. You can just close it from one side. I do recommend it. What can I say? The price tag, yes, I think that's the biggest problem with this enclosure. And for the whole laser, really, I think the laser, the 40 by 40 centimeters is around $400. So it's definitely not the cheapest package. However, it just works. It's easy to put together. It's really easy to work with. So, you know, there's a bit of a trade-off there. But yeah, really pleased with the results. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Thanks guys, have a fantastic time, take care.